South Korea's presidential office convened an emergency meeting at the National Security Council within hours of the missile launch, and President Moon Jae-in and U.S. President Donald Trump held a conference call to discuss North Korea's latest provocation. Our chief Blue House correspondent Moon Connyoung joins us again live from the presidential office. So Connyoung, give us the details.
Right, Mark. So a serious threat to world peace, and South Korea will not just sit back and watch North Korea launch these provocations. That's essentially the message South Korean President Moon Jae-in delivered during a special emergency meeting of the National Security Council earlier this morning within hours of North Korea's missile launch. So take a listen to the president first.
북한이 핵과 미사일을 포기할 때까지 한미 양국을 비롯한 국제사회는 강력한 제재와 압박을 추진해 갈 수밖에 없습니다.
So that is the president speaking to the National Security Council today. Make note that this is the first missile launch by North Korea in 75 days, as mentioned by our Kim Hyun-bin earlier, and the 11th since President Moon Jae-in took office, so within a span of 6 months period. So on average, that would be twice every month. So that's the number of provocations North Korea has launched. And President Moon Jae-in said that this time around, North Korea should in no way provoke South Korea, as South Korea will retaliate stronger, even with stronger retaliation will be met, and that North Korea should make the wise choice of not provoking any further. Mark.
So uncharacteristically strong words from President Moon there then. So is there an idea that South Korea, in conjunction with the U.S., might be looking into something a bit stronger than just diplomatic words this time? Is that something we might see in the coming days?
Well, the short answer is absolutely not. But I want you to first listen to the president on his words.
압도적인 힘의 우위를 기반으로 북한의 핵미사일 위협으로부터 대한민국을 보호하고 무력 도발 시 적극 응징하여 위협을 제거할 수 있는 역량을 더 한층 강화해 나갈 것입니다.
So those remarks are in line with President's repeated calls for a stronger and absolute dominance of military strength and military might by South Korean army or military over North Korea. Now, the 11 tests there have been since President Moon Jae-in took office, but what was different this time around from the previous ones was that South Korea and we're hearing that Japan and the U.S. also weren't caught off guard this time around. In fact, they had detected signs of a missile test coming around today, and they had signs yesterday. In fact, we're learning from multiple sources here in the Blue House that President Moon Jae-in, during a late afternoon tea time conference with his chief aides, asked for ways to keep or give the South Korean public a heads up before the actual provocation, so as to reduce the level of alarm amongst the public. And that measure was taken by the National Defense Ministry's announcement yesterday of having detected signs of an imminent threat, and that we reported yesterday, Mark. So this time around, South Korea was very well prepared, was well in the know of a missile test coming from North Korea. But other than that, South Korean President Moon Jae-in also gave a very clear message to North Korea that they should behave, so that not to make the wrong choice of provoking the U.S. to make a preemptive strike here on the Korean Peninsula. But he did reassure the South Korean public that he and President Trump will manage the situation carefully so that there is no military conflict on the Korean Peninsula. In fact, President Moon Jae-in, as part of efforts to do just that, shortly after the National Security Council meeting, spoke over the phone with Mr. Trump for a crisis call after the missile launch to discuss ways to ways to deal with North Korea's increased level of missile provocation. The two leaders strongly condemned North Korea, and according to a senior Blue House official, the two decided to further discuss ways to deal with North Korea after. So following a thorough review and assessment of the level of technological advancement North Korea appears to have made through this missile launch. Mark.